Welcome to part 2 of how I take my book ideas and make them into outlines. A quick recap for part 1, which essentially was a bit of theory. It was a step-by-step process of how I take my ideas and bring them to life and make them into outlines until I'm finally ready to actually write the book. My step 1 was getting an idea. It was essentially where the spark comes from, and I both subconsciously come up with ideas and consciously try to come up or develop more ideas by, consuming media, by taking walks, etc. Step 2 was putting all of it into notes on Notion. I tend to have one page in my gallery of ideas, and I just start stream of consciousness, typing out any bullet points of what I can come up with related to the idea. Step 3 is to graduate that lone page into a fully fledged page with a bunch of sub-pages onto my Notion, and essentially have a section for characters, a section for world building pages, and a section where I'll host any scene cards that I don't know where to place yet into the outline. And then finally, step 4 is the outlining process and how I go about it. I essentially mash together Save the Cat and Character Arcs by K.M. Wayland, and I make a dual table. In this part 2, we are going to take one of my sparks, one of my beginning of an idea, and we have already worked on a little bit of a stream of consciousness notes, slowly building it out. Like I said in part 1, I tend to do this over the span of a long time. This isn't a one-day process for me. This is a process that takes a while. And the reason why it takes a while is because I tend to be working on something else at the same time. I just don't want to lose track of my ideas. So that's why I decide to write down everything I can think of while the inspiration is hitting, and then I only tend to fully, truly work on it and start developing it purposefully once I have time to do so. So first, let's talk about the idea itself. I really debated what I wanted to work on at the moment, and I might not end up working on it at the end of this process, but I will still take you through the process itself. The idea that I wanted to potentially work on now is an alien romance idea. So I did just finish writing a sci-fi novel, and my brain is probably still in sci-fi mode. So why do I want to work on an alien romance idea? I don't think I'm a romantic girly, but I will every now and then read a sci-fi romance, and I do still mean a similar ratio to what people expect from romantasy, but just in a sci-fi universe. So the spark probably started from reading a few of those alien romance books, and just overall being plunged in the sci-fi world. I have been consuming a lot of sci-fi media. I've obviously been writing sci-fi, and I think a combination of this and my slight desire to go into the fantasy world has given birth to this sort of idea where I would want an alien romance. This idea of having alien species that you can then fall in love with is more in the vein of Star Wars, and by Star Wars I mean fantasy in space, and by fantasy in space I mean other races like elves and dwarves, but in space, so they're aliens. I'm very aware that I'm doing a huge amalgamation of things here and just extremely summarizing some things about the genres and subgenres of sci-fi, but this gives you an idea of the type of universe I'm picturing this idea in. I would like something in the vein of Star Wars, where you have a bunch of alien species interacting together, cohabitating on different planets, etc. In part 1, I also explained that I tend to hyper-focus on one scene that I'm picturing again and again as I'm listening to music and taking a walk, and this has happened here as well. I love a bit of a light-hearted type of character who's quick to joke around, who's got a smile and a bit of banter with everyone. That kind of persona I love, and very often I love it because they're often hiding a really dark background, something that happened in their past that is extremely traumatic, and they're just covering it with smiles and jokes. And that is my main character. I don't have a name for her yet, I just have her backstory. And I like this idea that humans have gone downhill in the future and that there's very few of them left in the universe, and that there's maybe 1,000, 2,000 of them, and that's it, and they're very much scattered around. So there's no human community left is the idea. And she is an inhabitant of an alien planet where a bunch of alien species cohabit and exist together and live together. But because of the rareness of her species, humans, she was once kidnapped when she was quite young by a sort of serial killer horrible character named the Collector. I'll probably change it because I'm pretty sure there's a ton of villains out there named the Collector, but this is the vague idea. I had in my head that she had been kidnapped by a collector, and he also had kidnapped a female of another species where they do not have many females left. So the alien race itself still exists and is still prominent in the galaxy, but they have a dwindling female population. This is a very common trope in the alien romance genre, except usually because of that, they kidnap women from Earth. I'm not so much into the making babies trope, so this is very difficult for me to get into that gist. But it is common and it happens a lot, and I've read a few. So that's probably where this stems from. However, obviously here, I'm not saying that there's a ton of humans left, so this has nothing to do with this. I just ran with the idea, the concept of a population where you have less and less women. I was picturing this scene where my main character escapes the Collector with the help of a woman from this alien race. And the way they do it is they form a warrior bond. I love subverting a little bit the trope of the fated mates bonds, and I really like this idea that this alien race forms bond with one another, and one of the bonds that they form is not just the mating bond like we'll probably have as well, but it's the warrior bond, and it is a bond between two people of the species, of the race, who can fight so well together that they can pretty much reach into each other's mind and read each other's mind and work together mentally through a telepathic bond in order to combat. This is probably highly inspired by Pacific Rim, which is a sci-fi movie I really liked and really enjoyed, where you have two people who need to create a synchronicity and actually have like a mental bond together where they do get telepathically connected in order to work together inside the machine, inside the bot, right? I love that trope. So I wanted to have a trope like this, and I wanted to keep it platonic. This is also inspired by my general theme in all of my books. I love stories of female friendship, like so much. I'm obsessed with good female friendship stories. And I wanted to have an intergalactic, interspecies female friendship story here. So this is what I was constructing in my head, I think, is this idea of they form a warrior bond in order to connect to each other's mind, in order to escape the Collector, fight him off, and leave the horrible planet they've been kidnapped to. But this happened when my character is like 17 or 18 or something, really, really young. And then years pass by without them being in contact. And this leads to the next scene, which was not part of the spark, but the spark of the idea was this. And then in my head, I had already connected a future scene where the male love interest of the same alien race as the one who was kidnapped, for some reason gets to see footage of what happened on that planet with the Collector and realizes that this woman from a different species than his, a human, connected, formed a bond, a warrior bond, with a woman from his species, which means that there is a potential there for other types of bonds with other women than the ones from his alien race. Am I making sense? I don't know, this feels like math. It's not math, I promise. How does he even get wind of this woman existing, of my main character existing? He is literally her landlord, in the sense that he is the prince that owns the fucking planet where she has her business. And her business, I decided, was because she's been living with this trauma, she started herself becoming a collector of sorts, in a way to sort of, I guess, work through her issues and her trauma. I don't know if that makes sense. I need to develop this a little bit more, but I kind of wanted her to become someone who starts collecting throughout the galaxy items related to her race, the humans. She has connections all over the fucking galaxy where she takes her ship and goes to buy an item from someone and brings it back to her place of business. She would have collected a ton of old movies and music and technology items and old shit that is basically probably gonna be from our time now today, but far, far, far in the future, so it would be extremely vintage, historical. And she shows it off in, not a museum, but I kind of thought she would own like a club, like a nightclub on the planet where she lives, and that's her business. And because she's using all sorts of human music mixed in with alien music, it's extremely popular. Maybe there's something along the lines of the humans were the only ones who can truly like get into the depths of music and have a proper musical ear and develop music in a different way than the other alien species. I really had this idea in my mind about music, and I was like, I'm gonna go with it in some way or another. In some form, music is gonna be important. And so all the other alien races come over to her club to party. There's like literally no humans there. It's just her. And so from this idea and this idea, I was like, how does he get wind of her? Because she's just a tenant on his planet, essentially, that he doesn't actually know. But I was thinking, because I love this idea of, you know, this is also very common in alien romance books, of his alien species or race being more of a warrior race. There's a few dissidents and rebels who miss the olden days of fighting other species and war. And one of his men, I guess, is extremely troublesome and annoying and creates problems everywhere he goes. And he creates a problem in her nightclub, but she's extremely overly prepared because she has a lot of gadgets that she's collected over time, including a bunch of human-made guns and machinery and things like that, to protect herself, because remember, she's traumatized from her past. So I figured she'd have like some sort of automatic protection thing that happens if she's in danger inside her club, and he gets killed by it. And because she accidentally essentially kills someone from that guy's species, but she knows this alien race and knows their traditions and how to honor the dead and everything, she's like, oh god, I need to avoid a diplomatic incident. And so she brings back the body in some sort of traditional honor-bound way, in a way that basically tells him she's met people from my alien race, therefore she knows us. Gets curious, investigates her, etc. He's actually pretty happy that the guy's been killed and almost wants to thank her, but has been told, I guess, by his advisor or something, that he needs to pretend that this is a big problem. And then he realizes he can use this against her, as in like to use her in ways that he would find useful. All of this started connecting together some of the dots, and I need to start taking notes of these ideas. I just went on a walk right now, which is another thing that I do in order to develop my ideas, is I go on a lot of walks and I listen to music that is going to help me visualize those scenes, especially the action scenes. And I've had a few ideas for fight scenes and things like that. And also I realized at some point that the reason I love this idea of the warrior bond and potentially a mating bond and all of these bonds is because then it's developing into this idea that the alien race in question, they all have this psychic power, and they can basically, they feed off other people's feelings, and this is how they connect with one another. I really like this concept of you can try and feel your feelings stronger to send them in waves almost to them to express something. So for instance, being thankful or being regretful, saying sorry or saying I love you, all of these things are said not with words but with feeling, that are then passed on to the person when they're next to you. Something along those lines. And humans in particular in this universe are going to be the most feeling of the species, like the race that feels the most. And so they're very rare, and there's something about them that his alien race finds very intriguing, is how I see it. I want to develop a little bit more of that and the psychic powers and the way the bonds function and things like that. I also have a lot of ideas for the woman from the alien race that got kidnapped with my main character, and I have this concept in my head that the women are revered because there's so little of them left, and often revered in a way that is a little bit constraining. And they used to be warriors just like the men, but as their numbers dwindled down, they've been confined more and more into roles of things like priestesses and stuff like that. I need to develop this a little bit more, but I think the idea is, because she created a warrior bond with another human, it shows that they can still be warriors. And I want to develop a little bit of this, like she's one of the first ones to take on the mantle of warrior again. There's something along those lines. I need to think it through, and that's where my next step comes in. All of these are just a jumble of thoughts and ideas interconnecting with one another. I almost need to create a mind map, but I think I really just need to sit down on my Notion page, open my Notion page and write down all these bullet points, and then later on I will open a new proper page to create world building sections and character sections and everything, and I will start classifying and organizing everything. So that's the next step. Okay, so it's been a couple of weeks since I last spoke to you guys about my plan for this part 2, but since then I have been working a little bit on this concept, on this idea. I've just not been able to film any footage of me talking about it, mostly due to the heat. We just had a heat wave in the UK, and we're getting like a week of respite and then we're getting into another one. So I decided I would use the days that are a little bit cooler to finally talk about this. So since we've last talked, I have done several things to work on this concept, including, like I mentioned, going on walks and listening to music. So I have created, I will pop it up here, the beginning of a playlist. I've been working on it while I was walking, so I would listen to the new recommended music by Spotify, things that I already have on some other playlists, things that I could pop into like a song radio and just see if there were other similar songs that could work. And all I'm doing is, I'm not even trying to get a playlist that has the right lyrics or that has a sci-fi tone or vibe. What I enjoy is music that I can lose myself into and just picture the scene that I've been picturing in my head for this book, right? Because for this idea, I've got several action scenes that are percolating in my brain. So this will grow as I continue working on it. So that's the first thing that I have been doing. I started mind mapping. This one is one of 2 mind maps I started working on. I was trying to figure out almost the characteristics of my aliens with this one. And so I worked on this with no clear intent in mind. I just wanted to get my hand onto this mind map system and just try to figure it out for myself. So again, this is just to get my mind loose and just figure out a little bit what I want to do with this book. Is there ideas popping up because I'm thinking about this, then this, then this, then that. And I felt like a mind map was the perfect way to explore this. Okay, so let me move you to my screen where I have started working on another mind map, but digitally, using this software, this website called Mind Map. I've never used this before. I am not being sponsored or anything. I have been looking for different softwares. This is the one that aesthetically pleased me more and just sort of worked because it's got a lot of rigidity, which I kind of wanted. I wanted something that doesn't offer me too much freedom. Like, I know a lot of people would recommend using things like Malin notes and stuff like that. These things are not immediately made for mind mapping, but you can easily mind map with them. The beauty of it is you just add the nodes, like, you know, add child. You can add here either a child to this or a sibling. A sibling means it'll be on the same level. A child will mean it's dependent on that one, it's a level under. So that's all it is, and then you can change the look and feel of it with the settings. So you can like change the node style, you know, change the size of the text, change the color of the box, etc. So I liked that it was a little bit more rigid and that you can only do certain things. This isn't, I'm not going to start putting imagery on there. I can't just move things around however I want. They're not really movable. If I move this, it snaps back into place where it should be. And I kind of wanted that. I didn't want all the freedom that I've got with other softwares. The point was that I don't know how to mind map, so I wanted a program that would show me how to mind map. I started with this idea of the 2 world, which is kind of the name I have given my alien people, but I might change it. This is really temporary because I have not been researching any conlang so far. Maybe I will, and maybe that will make me change my mind. But anyway, I started with 2 things. The meta population, which I called Xthera for now, which sort of encompasses humanoids. So we're going to have the Thu and the humans. And the idea is that the meta population sits above these different populations that all sort of have similar features and therefore are compatible in some ways, all around different galaxies. So that's all I wanted. It was just this idea of, you know, you have more than one human-like population throughout the universe. And that's why, because I didn't want to play with the idea of like, well, I could do monster romance, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do alien romance, and I don't want the aliens to be full-on monster looking because that's a different genre, which is not the one I'm trying to explore here. I kind of like this idea that in their religion, for instance, they don't have a god or gods, they have mythical figures of real people who existed, and these people were all the first to do something. Some examples would be the first emperor they ever had, the first warlord, the first priestess, and it could be a bunch of other things. These are really, really basic ones I thought of immediately. And this connects back, which I love, this idea that I can connect things together, this connects back to the fact that some of their core values are being useful to society, being efficient, and being the first to do something is part of that. So that works all together. For instance, they have bigger, stronger males in their species, which means that this interlinks with their strength and their skill in combat, which is one of their core values. I actually feel like it should be the other way around, like the arrow should go that way because this informs that. Similarly, in terms of communication, I was like, okay, so two of the things I've mentioned is that obviously they are a verbal people, but they're also psychics in a way that they have this thing where they taste emotions, and so that's why there's a connection with humans, who are a more emotional race than the two, and their verbal language is therefore shorter and more efficient, because again, it links back to this idea of efficiency, shorter words, efficiency. And this Tuan language then links back to this idea of being the first to do something, because I wanted to be like, okay, so if you add like a really short letter or syllable or like tiny word at the end or at the beginning of another word, then it becomes the first to do. And it would just be a very shorter way of saying that rather than the whole sentence, the first to do this. And it would become something that can be used as a title, and you have different levels of this title up until the highest one would be you're elevated to this mythical figure status. Anyway, there's so much to think of, and I've barely developed this mind map. There's a lot of things that I would like to work on. I started working a little bit on the humans in this, fantasy in space universe, which I did know that I wanted a small population left and nothing more. So maybe 1,000, 2,000 people left, which I think will link back to my main character, which she's looking for this sense of community by starting to collect items that are off Earth. I will have to think about the planetary system, the flora and fauna of the planets, etc. So all of these things I've not thought on, but this is the very beginning of mood boarding for me in this mind map system, and I'm really liking it. This is new to me. I've not done this before. I think it works in a different way. I think my only issue is going to be finding things again in there can look a little bit confusing. The other and last thing that I have been doing, I've been collecting pins, both to try and figure out the alien species themselves. So I've been collecting a bunch of pins. All the ones that are more monstrous looking are not supposed to be the ones that we're going to be romancing in this story. Just to be clear, again, I'm not doing I'm not doing a romance with monsters, I'm doing romance with aliens. And you obviously, one can mean both. It's not the case here for me. But like, for instance, this type of character, or this one, I just think are really cool and could be other species that may exist in the universe in this story. So I am saving everything and anything, not just characters that look like they could be the romantic interest. Does that make sense? Like, this is not going to be my romantic interest, I'm so sorry, even though I really like this little leaf guy. I mean, he looks very cool, but it's not going to be it. And similarly, I've been saving a lot of like gadgets, technology, and then just worlds, like things that look so cool as worlds. I'm really intrigued by the world of Moebius, who's this French comic book artist who created entire sci-fi universes. Like, this is one of his creations, and it's incredible and it's so inspiring, and it makes me think about everything I could be doing with this. My main issue, and the thing I'm trying to stop myself from doing, is I don't want to get world builder's disease. I don't want to get like to the point where all I'm doing is collecting things that I need to then create more worlds and more ideas and more things that are actually going to be unnecessary, because all I want to do here is a small little alien romance. That's it. I don't actually want to plunge myself into mega in-depth world building. I just want to have a good tip of the iceberg, if you know the iceberg theory for world building. That's all I want, just a good tip of the iceberg. So these are all the things I have been working on so far to try and develop this idea in my head, and I think I've got enough to start the next step, which is going to be making a Notion page to start organizing those thoughts and put them together into a world building Bible, because that's what will be the most useful to me when I actually start outlining and then writing. All of these are really fun and really cool, but they're useless to me if I can't find them again, and if I'm like, where's this? Oh, this is on paper, this is on Pinterest, this is on this mind map website. All of these are cool, but But the reality is I need a centralized space, and that's why I'm using Notion as mine. You can use anything. You can use a folder on your desktop if that's what you prefer. For me, it's going to be a Notion gallery page because that's where I'm going to put everything together, and that's where I'll be able to save links and have backlinks to things. And so easily I could find this mind map website again, or this Pinterest page again, or all of these other things that are inspiring this story. So for instance, a lot of my stories, I end up looking at things on Wikipedia and I'm like, oh, this is great, I need to save this. So I'll just save the Wikipedia link on one of my Notion pages that's in relation to this. And that's what I'm going to be doing next. To catch up with you guys about what I've been doing for Project Galaxy. And what I've been doing is essentially I created 2 gallery views, I mean 3 technically. One, I've put together this time around characters and world building in the same page but in 2 separate galleries, just because I thought it was easier to have them all in the same spot. I might change my mind, but that's okay because once I've created a new database in Notion, I can just move it around, so that's not a problem. It's just currently with Rules of Survival, I kept flicking between world building and character page, and I kept having to have both open at the same time and then like go back and forth. A lot of things inform each other when it comes to world building and with the characters as well, so I was kind of struggling having them separated, so I just thought for this time around, for this project, I'm going to have them on the same page, just as 2 separate galleries. Then the third gallery I started creating, which you will have seen me do on screen, brand new, is for my outline. I've never done the work this way before. I think the beauty of databases, feel free to go watch my Notion video on databases. The beauty of databases is that you can change the view. So even though I've started it as a gallery, I can later on make it, like give it a new view as a table format or as a calendar format if I want to like put dates for when I want to write this, etc. So I'll be able to use this source into other things. But for now I decided to create cards basically because I felt like that way I can move things around more easily and just decide for Act 1, I've created a first gallery. I think I'm gonna split it, but then that might defeat the purpose. Currently I've split it. I've put Act 1 as like the name of this database, this gallery view, and I was planning on doing different gallery views, like new databases for Act 2 and 3. But realistically, if I want to be able to have everything into the same table later on, then I need it to be within the same gallery view, the same database. So what I might end up doing is just having a view that shows only Act 1 because I have tagged it. So I've created a tag for acts. I've created a tag for Romancing the Beat because I never really managed to use it. This project is supposed to be more of a romance, so I want to be able to use this. And I thought I would create a tag for the different beat sheet moments, so the different beats within Romancing the Beat. And then I have put in there the POV, and I also struggled to figure out a name for my main character because I hadn't named her yet, and I still don't know if I'm going to keep Nova as a name. I do like Magnus for the main male character, so I might keep that, but I'll mull on it a little bit longer. But essentially I started with cards because that way I can easily summarize in a couple of sentences what each scene is supposed to be about, and then underneath I can start typing more information about details of the scene later on, and that won't show in the, you know, the first view you have of the cards. The only thing that will show is the first paragraph of text. So if I keep the summary of it in one paragraph of text, then that will show on the cards when I'm in the gallery view, and I can just move them around. That's what I wanted, and I feel like this new method might help me with moving things around like physical cards without having physical cards and just having everything in one place, essentially. But yes, that was it. That was me going from idea to outline. I obviously haven't finished the outline. I have so many more scene ideas that I'm going to put in there, but this gives you a first glimpse into the way that I'm working currently and how I bring my ideas to life when I want to get ready to actually get writing. So this is the stage at which once I'm done with all my outline cards, I'll fill in the gaps wherever I'm missing scenes, and then once that is done, I will start writing. I'm not going to do this just yet just because I want to go back into Rules of Survival once I get my critique partner's feedback, but this means that this project is getting ready to be worked on next if I wanted to, and that's kind of exciting because that means less work for me in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and this process. If you did, consider leaving a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one.